say something because I'm the one that suggested we do this. But I'm glad you're here, and I think it's going to be really exciting. So I want you all, after we have the presentations, you go to each table and you will hear more about that, and give your ideas and give your money. I'm so excited, and I love the piggy bank. Who brought the piggy bank? Charlotte. I love the piggy bank. $100 bills, that'll work. But I think the pastor will be the one now to lead off and tell us what to do.
Okay, I'm going to keep this short and sweet, more short than sweet, but just wanted to share a text in Scripture in Psalm 127. God says, "Except the Lord build a house, they labor in vain that build it." So we want God to build our house, our church. But if we sat back and waited, I don't think anything would happen up there, no matter how hard we prayed, if we didn't do anything more than that. But of course, we can understand this in a spiritual sense. This test can apply to our marriages, to our relationships, but we have been definitely given a vision by God. You could trace it back many years when we got the land. It was like a minor miracle that we got the land, and as we've been pursuing that over the years before I got here, God has been opening up doors and made a way for us to see this vision come to pass. And the Bible says that, the Apostle Paul says, "Know ye not that you are the temple of God, and that the Spirit of God dwells in you?" God is going to use us as a body, as a living temple, to fulfill this vision, to have a light on a hill. Literally, Jesus said, "You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hid." So he's given us this perfect location there that we can be a light to the surrounding community in Buena Vista and Lexington and other surrounding areas. And it's as each of us individually call upon God to, by His Spirit, empower us to do what we can in our sphere of influence to do our part to make this project come to pass. And that means that each of us has to utilize our talents, our resources, and contribute them to fund and to build this church. We already got a little taste. This is the start of something big here, those jars over there. But Paul says, "I beseech you therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God, which is your spiritual worship." Someone once said that the worst thing about a living sacrifice is that it keeps wanting to crawl off the altar. But if each of us individually will consecrate ourselves to do what we can in terms of our resources and time and talent, this will happen. I think of how Dave has donated stone that he was able to get a hold of here for this project. And each of us might have our individual niche, our talent that we can contribute for this project. And so one thing I know for sure is that when this church is finally built, we'll look back and give the glory to God, because it's beyond the scope of any of us individually to build this church, but together as a living temple, we put ourselves into this project. We can make it, we can have it come to pass. So remember, except the Lord build a house, they labor in vain that build it. You want me to have a little prayer right now? Okay, let's bow our heads. Father in heaven, thank you for bringing us here today and this awesome opportunity we have to work together, each of us with different talents that you've given to us, and each of us would find the joy that comes to offer to you ourselves as living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to you, that we might, through every means and talent you've given to us, bring this project to its full completion, that it might further your kingdom. And we pray this all in Jesus' name. Amen.
Hi, everyone. So appreciate you all coming out today. I want to thank you for that. I know Sundays are, for Seventh-day Adventists, quite often a lazy day, so to make the effort and get out here, we appreciate it so much. I want to thank the church board as well for having confidence in the building committee, to let the building committee sort of take off and see if we can make the right decisions in making plans for this new church. I want to thank everyone that's on the building committee. They have spent a lot of hours digesting stuff, figuring out things, realizing how much more red tape there is in a commercial building than there is in a residential building. Just one thing right after another that you don't think about until you get ready to try to build it. So I want to thank each one of you that are on the building committee. I especially want to thank Gary Barker. Gary is our project manager, and the conference actually requires to have a professional in that position so that congregations like ours don't get in over their heads. They have somebody that knows the building business inside and out and can guide us along the way. The conference actually calls him the owner's representative because on paper, the conference is the owner. So they want somebody looking after things as they go along. But I can tell you, Gary's much more than their representative. He is the key to making this whole thing go around right now, and I appreciate him so much. The tables you've seen around the room, I don't know exactly why they're numbered like they are, but I guess we wanted you to get exercise. If you do them in order, you're going to have to go across the room and whatnot. But we have tables explaining the floor plan. Table in the back gives you some of the lighting styles that are under consideration, and you'll have an opportunity to look at those and actually vote your first, second, and third choice on that. We need to pick out a new name for the church, and there's a table for that. There's a table entitled "We Can Do This." And you know, the more deeply we've gotten into this project, the more I've seen potential roadblocks that somehow we overcome, the more I realize that, like Pastor was saying, the Lord gave us this property, and His intention was for us to build something there. And I know that He's going to see it through. This is a terrible time to try to get through this project due to COVID. It slows everything down. Building materials, any of you that have bought any building material lately know that it's just ridiculous what has happened to prices. It's completely impossible to gauge what this building is going to cost. But I have faith that no matter what it is, the Lord's going to give it to us somehow. I don't know how, but it's going to happen. This building is going to happen. Some of the challenges, as I was saying, COVID, sort of everything starts with CO maybe. Codes, co-engineers, we're sort of in that process right now, that we have a architectural plan that's 80% complete. Now the engineers have to design the plumbing, the heating, the electrical, all the equipment that goes into it. The structural engineers have to decide how to build what the architect has drawn so that it's strong and secure and durable. There's another engineer, Gary. What? Pardon? Civil engineer to decide how the land needs to be designed to accommodate this large a building, where the runoff's going to be, how we're going to control the erosion and runoff. That's another thing that has to be coordinated into the whole thing. Fortunately, we, I think, are hooked up with some of the best engineers as far as being a fit for us, knowing that economy is of the utmost importance, but making sure that we do everything right as well. So from this point on, what can you do? Like the pastor said, prayer is one of the most important things, but prayer alone is not going to get this building built. So we need each one and everyone that's in the church to do whatever it is that you can do. And some people might say, well, I can't do anything. Well, that's not true, because anybody could come on a Sunday and help clean up the job site and get it ready for the next week. Anybody, well, maybe not everybody, but some people can paint if they choose to do that. And some people can donate their time, but more so their money. This is a project that the entire church is going to have to get dedicated to as far as systematic giving, and Patty will talk more about that later. So before I turn it over to Gary, who's going to guide us more through the drawings, the floor plans and whatnot, and tell us what we're up against, I just want to thank each one again for being here. I appreciate your dedication, and each member of the church. You're a blessing in my life. I thank you.
How's everybody doing? This thing's kind of loud, isn't it? So before we get started, I'd like to take a moment, and I really want to thank the building committee. Some of you guys out here have worked with me on occasion. Some of you know about me, and then others don't. I've completed my fair share of projects in my career, some $70-some million worth of work in the last probably 8 years or something like that. And I've worked with a lot of building committees and a lot of committees in general. And I can tell you that you guys got something rare here. We have a building committee here that not only functions, we think outside the box, we look at various things. I throw challenges to them that they never thought they would have. And it's a great group of people that's not afraid to start at 6 o'clock on the evening and stay till 8 or 9 or 10 o'clock for whatever it takes. So any of the building committee that's here right now, would you please stand up? And I'd like to give them applause. And we're missing a few of them, but hopefully they're watching us. So when we went to college, you take your public speaking class and they tell you got to memorize your speech and you shouldn't have notes and all this stuff. Well, I'm really bad at staying off focus, out of focus, and I'm also really bad at rambling. So I'm going to help you guys out with some notes, so you'll have to excuse them. A few small things about myself. I don't want to get into it too deep. So I grew up in North Carolina, just outside of Boone, North Carolina. I'm still partial to North Carolina. If you ask me where I'm from, I'm going to tell you North Carolina. But I call the Appalachian Mountains home, so it doesn't matter. If we're close to the Appalachian Mountains, then I'm home. My wife and I now reside in Natural Bridge, and we got a little farm over there. She's partial to horses, me not so much, but they run around out there and eat a bunch of money. I served 6 years in the Army. Some of that was a little bit engineering background. Most of it was traveling wherever they want us to go and do what they want us to do. Got out when the recession hit. I went back to Appalachian State, took the building science program there. I've got some pretty good credentials behind me, but we won't sit here and waste time with that. What I'd like you to know is that I've dedicated a lot of my personal life and my entire professional life to the built environment. So I believe in building authentic structures, building structures that perform well for the owner, and structures of quality. All of those are becoming kind of rare commodities these days. So let me catch up. So I first heard about this project through my buddy Sean Lohr. He and I were discussing something at his shop, and he brought it up, and I think I may have thrown a few ideas his way. I think I sent some emails your way or something. That was a few years back. So fast forward, 8-9 months ago or something like that, we were all up front. I found myself entrenched into a pretty heavy conversation about this potential structure, the new church, getting into it. And I realized pretty quick that the committee that I was sitting there talking to was a good group of people. And I'm happy to say that I'm part of that group now. So I'm tasked with organizing and guiding. I disagree with Dickie on very few things, but one of them is me being the key. I don't believe that I'm the key to this project, and I hope that I don't have to live up to the name of being the key of the project. That's a pretty high standard, but I appreciate it. So what I try to do is organize it, bring things together, guide us in a certain direction so that we can realize this project in the best means possible. So my background is heavy general contractor, which is somewhat rare for the person that's sitting in front of you. Usually the person sitting in front of you right now would be an architectural or engineer background. I do have a degree in engineering, but I'm not an engineer. So it's kind of nice that being from a general contractor background, I know all the tricks, or a lot of them. And so we're going to work together to try to get around some of those tricks and try to save some percentages. And also we're working heavy together in the beginning of the project to help offset change orders and potentials for things down the road that might get us in trouble. So the beginning of this project is slower than some would start, but when we get to the end of it, we shouldn't have a lot of that chaos and the problems that come from just giving your plans to an architect, letting them draw on them, throwing them back to you, and then you got to deal with it. So the first milestone we had was to actually develop where we were headed, and I got to tell you, I put the board through the ringer on it, because when we first sat down, my first goal is always to bring a project size down so that we can get budgets down. If the project comes down, the budgets come down. So I had a list that the committee had already come up with of rooms and square footage sizes and things like that. And I went through that list beforehand and marked through some things and messed around with some square footages and said, if this room had 10 people in it and you get so many square foot per people, blah, blah, all this kind of stuff. So I didn't tell them that. So we get to the committee meeting, and my main goal to walk out of there that day was to reduce the size of the building. And I successfully failed at doing that. So when you can do that, and I'm saying I didn't fail by not trying. I threw all kinds of things their way, all kinds of scenarios their way. We talked about money. I seen some faces get red, and I'm relentless, and Patty was one of the main ones that I would say, well, can we get rid of that? And it was no. We actually ended up adding a little bit of square footage to the building. That's right. So I'm comfortable and absolutely confident in saying that where we're headed is the correct way. We're essentially planning a church for, call it the next 10 years. We're not planning a church for tomorrow, the next day, or whatever. So we're essentially looking at doubling the growth of the church, which means doubling the growth of a facility. So when you look at all those things and you reach out way past all of that, you got to take a lot into consideration. You got to think about a whole lot of things. And the church got bigger, a little bit bigger from what it was. But I thought I had them when I first came in, but I didn't. So from the very beginning, you know, everybody wants to know what something costs. That's the number one thing in life, right? What does something cost? How many of us have gotten an estimate before and we looked at that estimate, and then when the bill came in, it didn't match the estimate, and all of a sudden we're upset that the two of those numbers didn't match? We've all done it. So the estimate, the person that gave you that estimate, they didn't lie to you. They gave you an estimate. You took it to be the true cost of what it was what it was you were buying. A wise man once told me that, and it was a senior project manager I learned a lot from. He told me that be careful when you give people numbers. He's like, you can give them 20 numbers in a row and they're going to remember one, the first number you give them. And so another annoyance of the board is that I hardly ever throw numbers out there. I feel like if we're going to go at this thing, we need to be realistic with it. We need to get a full set of construction documents in front of us that say, this is what we're doing for plumbing, this is what we're doing for mechanical, and then we can start bringing numbers off of those and we'll have some good backup for it. But just to guess at a project cost is a little bit premature. So you guys won't hear me throw a number out there, but I'll get into some other stuff here. So we'll circle back to money here in a little bit, or at least cost here in a little bit. What I'd like to do right now is I'd like to get into where we're at now. So as Dickie said, we've got the architectural, which is, it's not up here, but it's Mathers. We got the architectural set at somewhere around 80%. I see that as a loose number. They think they're at 80%, I think they're at 70%. So it's kind of loose. We've got a good team of MEP engineers, which is mechanical, electrical, plumbing. I've worked with these guys before. They'll do a good job for us. I'm not going to tell you they're the best engineer in the state, but for what we need, they're really, really good. We've got a good civil engineer, Russ Orson, Perkins and Orson, and Lexington. Now I'm missing somebody, Dickie. Who am I? Oh, structural engineer. The structural engineer was probably the only engineer that when we started this process, we didn't debate. It's Prosm Engineering. They've got a Gray, Tennessee office and a Marion, Virginia office. These guys, I've worked with them extensively for the last 5 years, and they are the engineer we need. I've seen them do some really good ethical things on jobs where things didn't go quite right, and they would stand in and stand up for things that they might have had a little hand in. So they'll take care of us. We did not shop structural engineers. Everybody else was thoroughly shopped out and put through the ringer. So with that, let's start with, this is what we call Dickie site plan. So the site plan plan with the way they're making the site work. There's a whole lot of little small things in there where we've moved and have to fluctuate some, but that's it. So the floor plan, let me get this thing up here. So it looks fairly complicated, right? Anybody familiar with commercial construction, it's not overly complicated, but it is. Problems away from it, all that. So we scrubbed that for forever and ever, I feel like. There's an ante room to either side. Top, a fairly large social hall and a kitchen. So it's really a pretty good design, pretty good flow through the building, so you can get through various things while other people are doing classes or whatnot, and you're not interrupting a class. One of the main things we're going to talk about in the So what our intent was, we wanted to have a safeguard in place in case we get in trouble with a budget. If we can't afford the whole project at once, we certainly want to build part of it. Part of it's better than none of it. But also, we may not need that entire facility right this minute. So it's not just to place undue burden on the congregation and the current members or anything like that by going over budget to build a bigger facility than we can afford right now. So what we did, along with that fire line right there, is we phased the project. So this is phase 1, and that's phase 2. We don't know if we're going to build both phases right now. We don't know if we will or if we won't. We may be able to afford to build both phases, but we have that safeguard in place should we not be able to do it. The great thing about phasing a project rather than building a project that is, only intended for today is you're phasing it, you're looking into the future. So we're taking into account the mechanical systems of that side. We're taking into account the electrical systems of that side that'll be tied back to a shared electrical room that's not in that second phase. We're taking into account the fire loads, the egress points, all that different stuff, so in the future it's seamless to be able to go into a second phase and build the rest of the facility. So you're basically planning for it. Let me catch up here through all the notes I didn't look at. So it may seem a bit elaborate to do the phasing. I don't necessarily agree that it is. It just does it make sense while we're doing there? Getting tripped up a little bit on it, but. So we got the safeguard in to get the phasing correct. What'll happen is the first phase you'll have from this line to over. The second phase you'll have the social hall and the remainder of everything. I pretty much lost my place on notes. I told you I'd do it. So anyway, I won't get into anything else. I'm going to try to get Patty up here so we can wrap it up. Sorry I lost my train of thought there on you, but I'll be here mingling around. I certainly want to meet everybody, talk to you, discuss this thing. We'll do whatever. And Patty? Yes.
Gary, could you do one thing in the sanctuary? Would you point out a little bit where the windows will be? Will
Sure.
they be up high and will they be up front? Just a little bit of that. Because
Sure.
I think the classrooms will all have windows, right?
They will?
But
Yeah.
show what we will be seeing when we're in the sanctuary as far as windows.
It may be better to view the windows on your,
Would it be better to do it on
yeah,
that?
because we got first and second story windows. It might get confusing on this.
Okay, that'll work, that'll work.
So I've said it before, I think that Patty is the foundation of the building committee. She don't want me to say that, but she and I keep going back and forth on who's in charge, and she's got me beat. So without that, Patty.
Gary, you may not know this. My father called me the general, but my sister called me Hitler. I'm not sure, some of you have seen all the renderings, so that's not new stuff. But Gary won't use numbers because we don't have firm estimates, but we are going to talk a little bit about numbers here. The renderings, you know, are renderings. They're not set in stone. The colors are not there. All those things are going to happen down the road a little bit. But it gave us such encouragement to see this. It was like, oh, this is real. This is the possibility that's going to happen. But you also know we're talking about borrowing, have been approved to borrow $1.3 million. So that is what some of us are, a little nervous about. But in our church, we have 45 active giving units. And if you looked at your bulletin yesterday, we have the Ray and Jeanette Queen that are moving their membership here. So now we have 46. A little pressure, Ray. Okay, yeah, you heard it, Gary. We got it. I want to look at where we are in our funds raised to date and what we have, so that you can see that while it's a big project, it's doable. Now, our land is paid for, but we still look at that as part of our project. We put out that money for it. When the bank looks at our project, they take that into consideration. So $210,000 was in land. We have site work pledged that Gary says is going to be about $100,000. So that's there that we don't have to put out, but that's part of our project. The cash on hand we have right now is $408,500. Potomac Partners, we got in before they changed their program at the conference, and so we do have $75,000 that they're supposed to help us with. And we've already paid out what I kind of call soft costs of $170,000. Those are things that we have to pay and do, and we don't even get to put a backhoe on the property and dig the first ditch. So already we have that on hand or invested in this project. Then if we sell our church at the right time, because we can't sell our church too soon and we don't want to hold on to it too long, but I think 600,000 is really, really reasonable. I think we will be closer to 750, 800,000, but we're not going to go there. We're going to be, on the safe side. So right there we have 1.5 to work with. Add to that our loan available for this project is 2.863, a lot of money. So how are we going to pay for that? The loan of 1.3, right now we're working with a second bank to see if we can do any better, but we have been approved already for a mortgage of 4% at 4% for 20 years. That is set for 5 years. That rate could change every 5 years. But a 20-year note at 4% comes out to a monthly payment of $7,877. And we have 46 giving units, so those figures are not exactly right. So if with our 45 giving units, if every giving unit was able, and we know not every giving unit is able, could do $175 a month, then we'll meet our mortgage every month. But not always is everything perfect. We don't live in a perfect world. But some people might only can do a quarter. So if you look at a quarter unit based, for a quarter giving unit based on 52 weeks or 12 months, that would be a giving unit that could give $10.10 a week or $43.77 a month. We need a combination of quarters, halves, twos or threes or ones to get us to 45. So that's what I want you to think about. If you can give one unit $175 a month or $40 a week, 2 units, $350 a month or $80 a week. There are somebody that's going to do 3 units, 121, that's $525 a month. So you have to figure out where you are on the units, what you can do. And I want to tell you that when we first bought the land, Wayne and I had what we did each month. And we continued that after the land got paid off because we wanted to get to the building process. Then when we voted to build the church, we changed that, upped it a little bit. And the more I've been on the building committee, the more I've told him he's going to have to find a second job. So we started a practice pledge. Now, say that, what's a practice pledge? There's going to be a time when you're going to be asked to, okay, what can you do? We have your commitment. So Wayne and I started our practice pledge to see how much we felt like we could do before we signed our name on the dotted line and said, this is what we're going to do. So I encourage you to try a practice pledge, see what happens, because that practice pledge is working out okay for us. We haven't missed it. We're still able to do it, and he's still got his hot tub, so, So think about, this is what we have to think about, what you can do. On this table that has our fundraising information, there is a nice little booklet that you can read, has a letter from the pastor, has some breakdowns similar to this on how you can think and get yourself ready. Be preparing your heart for what you think you can do. So what can you do? Is it going to be a weekly or a monthly thing? You've got to figure it out. There might be a one-time gift that you think that you can do. It could be that you're doing some estate planning, and Tiffany, I'm not throwing you under the bus, but I have to tell a story. When we were talking about giving units, and she said, well, how much is a giving unit? At that point, I think we were at 44 giving units, and it was like 180. And she looked over at her daddy, and she said, can I get in on his giving units? He and I both said no. So she had to get up with her own giving units. And so then we went a little bit, and we were she was getting ready to leave, and she got to the door, and she looked back at Wayne and me, and she said, 20 years? And we said, well, we hope to pay it off sooner than that. And she said, but what happens? And she didn't know how to say it. But what happens with you and Wayne's giving units if something happens to you? She said, am I responsible for your giving unit? She said, I'm on the phone, I'm telling Jenny Sue and Jeffrey, they got to take care of your giving units. But That's why I say estate planning. Wayne and I need to think this through for the future. Now, you know, everybody has birthdays. We get older all the time. But we have to think how to support our church, even if we're not here. So estate planning is important. Fundraisers, got a committee that's been working on getting some things together. So those ideas are going to be coming. And we're going to be asking for contributions from people who might not be part of our church. Businesses around here. I know that Dickie and I have a lot of cousins whose grandfather was in this church, helped build that church. And we're going to be contacting some of those cousins to say, in memory of John Mace, would you like to help with this project? So there are ways above and beyond just what we can do. So we can do this. Keep this in mind. You'll see some more of those figures here. And I just know how much the Lord has blessed us already. He's going to continue to bless us. And I say as a treasurer, I don't know that I have ever had to write a check and worry if it was going to be covered. We've always taken care of our responsibilities here at this church. So, all right. The tables are mixed up just because we weren't sure where every table was going to get to be. But, you know, we are supposed to be 6 foot apart. So we're spreading you out here a little bit. David, can you come and uncover this? There's a floor plan right beside this table, and then there's a floor plan just like it in the back. There's some elevations also for you to look at. But people are visual. You know that. So if you can look at this model that David and Michelle made, I think that will give you the biggest idea of how this is going to be. So I want you to make sure you stop at every table, take something from it, to make a vote if you need to do that. And then David, you want to share about some brick here? We're not really making a vote on that or anything, but just share a little bit what's there.
We had the opportunity and we had some overages on a job. So I have some stone left job that is enough to put on the new church when we build it. And we can show you the drawings of where the stone would be on it. The stone is up here. I just like everybody's approval. Otherwise, we'll find something else to do with all the stone we have. But there's a picture of the stone, what it actually looks like inside the house and outside the house. And these are some of the brick samples that Michelle and I just picked up. We're not at the point where we're choosing brick yet and say, yes, that's the brick color we want, and because we can give input, yes, of this is what we want or this is what we don't want. So just, yeah, that's why this is here just for reference.
David, give this story you told me about why we got that stone.
Okay, so I had estimated on the house and that we would need about 1,600 square feet of stone. And that includes a little bit of overage because you always plan for a little bit of overage. And I ordered the stone and they shipped it to us in 2 loads, 2 shipments. And I didn't think anything about it. We got just about finished up with the job and I'm looking over and it's like, why in the world do I have all this stone left over? And I was just scratching my head and I was getting upset. I'm like, I know I didn't order that much stone. So we looked back through our ordering and they had shipped us 2,100 square feet, 500 square feet more than we ever needed. And it ended up with 300 square feet overage. So we have 800 square feet of stone at my house that we're willing to put on the new church. So that's taken care of as long as everybody says, yes, that's the stone we want. And if not, we might have to get you to transfer your membership, but you still have to pay you're still a giving unit though. So anyways, but that's, you know, so my angst at the wholesale, you know, the masonry company selling me that, I was like, and then I realized, oh, wait a minute, God just gave a stone for the church. So I'm so thankful that that's what he did.
God also gave us rainy days, so David had time to do this model up here that's incredible.
God also gave us Dickie Heavener, who knows how to run a cat. Is that what they're called? to donate his time to do the landscaping. Is that what? Site work.
I want also to say something about Nancy. She came, she came in on the building committee a little late. You know, we had to replace somebody, and she said sure. As soon as I asked her, I was really pleased. And after the first meeting, she said, "If I had known what this was," but she has stuck it out, and she has learned a lot of terms, haven't you, Nancy?
Yeah, never to build anything on my own.
Okay. All right. There's 5 different tables. There's some refreshments. Just get up and go and look and ask questions. Gary's got to leave shortly, so if you've got questions for Gary, get him right away. Dickie, Pastor, whoever you want to talk to, just talk and fellowship and vote.
So I'm just talking to the people on the live stream. Those of you who are watching on live stream, if you'll just give us a moment, Jonah's getting his camera together and we're going to show you an up-close view, hopefully, of the model. So just give us a few moments and just watch everybody else walking around. Well, it looks like our cord is a little bit too short, but I do have something else to share with you. So for those of you who are watching on the live stream, we're going to go ahead and end the stream. Hopefully you were able to see a little bit of the model and the different things. And for those of you who joined at the end, you can always go back and watch from the beginning.